I am very pleased to be joined this morning by three representatives who will be speaking on behalf of Ontario employers, post-secondary institutions, and students as I announce the reintroduction of my private member's bill, the Learning Through Workplace Experience Act. I'd like to welcome here today Paul Smith, who is the director of the Canadian Association of Career Educators and Employers. Also Lisa Whalen, who is co-chair of Government Relations for Education at Work Ontario, and Sean Madden, who is the executive director of the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, or USA. I'd also like to recognize some other stakeholders who are with us in the studio this morning. Matt Caron from College Student Alliance, Alistair Woods from Canadian Federation of Students Ontario, Jasmine Irwin from USA, and Kirk Patterson, who is also from Education at Work Ontario. Some of you may remember this bill when it was first introduced 8 months ago in March 2014. The bill was debated at second reading, and I'm happy to say that it received all party support. It went to committee for public input and was endorsed by stakeholders across the province. Unfortunately, it died on the order paper when the legislature dissolved for the election. But not surprisingly, the bill remains as relevant today as it was 8 months ago. Young people in Ontario continue to face unemployment rates that are more than double the provincial average. Just this week, a report from the Fraser Institute found that Ontario has higher rates of long-term youth unemployment than any other Canadian province, an average of 26.1% for those with a post-secondary degree and 18.6% for those with a post-secondary certificate. To address these high rates of youth unemployment, research shows time and time again that work experience is a crucial factor, perhaps the crucial factor, in helping young people enter the labor market. And the lack of relevant work experience is a major reason that so many graduates feel they have no other option than to work for free, just so that they can get their toe in the door as an unpaid intern. Work-integrated learning, or WIL as it is called, can provide college and university students with career-relevant work experience while they are studying. WIL programs include co-ops, field placements, internships, practicums, service learning, and more, and can be offered to students as either mandatory or voluntary components of their course of study. The bill draws on the results of a research study I conducted for the Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario, or HECO, before I was elected, and is informed directly by the findings that came out of that research. Overall, the study showed very strong student interest in and demand for WIL programs. Also showed strong commitment across the post-secondary sector from faculty, staff, and administrators to ensuring high-quality WIL experiences for students. But it also showed relatively low employer involvement. Only about 40% of Ontario employers provide these kinds of opportunities. The final phase of the HECO study, a survey of graduates 18 months following graduation, was just released last week and offers some important insights into the labor market benefits associated with WIL participation. The biggest benefit appears to be improved fit between education and employment. Among employed college and university graduates, those who participated in WIL were more likely to feel they had the right educational credentials for their job, that their job was related to their program of study, and that it would help them achieve their long-term career goals. In my current role as MPP, I can say that this is exactly the kind of outcome we want, given the significant public dollars that are invested in post-secondary education and the huge fees that students pay in tuition. Before I turn it over to the other panelists, I want to provide a quick overview of what is in the bill. First, the bill amends the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities Act to define work-integrated learning and service learning in legislation. This distinguishes will and service learning as separate and distinct from other types of labor market activity or experiential education, and is important to ensure that students who participate in will programs are not asked to perform menial, routine tasks that do not contribute to their learning or skill development. Second, the bill establishes a provincial advisory council on work-integrated learning that brings together stakeholders from the post-secondary sector, from economic development, and from the labor market sector in order to brainstorm strategies to expand work-integrated learning, particularly paid work-integrated learning for students, and to improve oversight of unpaid will. The emphasis on paid will is the corollary to the other private member's bill I introduced in July, the Protection for Interns and Vulnerable Workers Act. By providing more opportunities for post-secondary students to gain relevant work experience while they are studying, this bill will help reduce the proliferation of unpaid internships that exploit graduates' need to get career-related experience. And many times, these unpaid internships simply displace unpaid work. The improved oversight of will programs that do not include compensation recognizes that some forms of will, such as community service learning or very, very brief field placements, may not involve compensation, but still must provide students with a rich and meaningful learning experience. The Advisory Council is mandated to make recommendations to the Minister in three key areas: increasing employer awareness of the benefits of will so that we can get more employers involved, maximizing the educational benefits for students, and ensuring that all qualified students who want to participate in will are able to do so across different faculties and fields of study. Finally, the bill proposes the development of a website to provide one-stop access for employers to information about will programs offered locally and regionally, and the specific skills that students would bring from these programs to the workplace. So that concludes my remarks, and I now want to invite Rick, Lisa, and Sean to share their perspectives on the bill.
Thank you, Peggy. I'll start off by echoing Peggy's comments in that employers in Ontario recognize the value of work-integrated learning as a learning strategy and as a recruiting strategy. So that's why we're here. That's why Casey is supporting this bill. We see the creation of a ministerial advisory council that would enhance delivery of this important learning and retention and hiring strategy as a very good thing. So the Canadian Association of Career Educators and Employers, CACE, is a national nonprofit partnership of employer recruiters and career service professionals. Our mission is to provide authoritative information, advice, professional development opportunities, and other services to employers, career service professionals, and students. Our members include college and university career and co-op staff and people who recruit for Canada's leading employers. Many of our members work here in the province of Ontario and would be affected by this bill and by the work of the Advisory Council. CACE supports the creation of this council because we recognize the transformative value of work-integrated learning. We're committed to working with educators and student groups to ensure that students have the best experience possible when they engage with the workforce, and we believe that the implementation of the Advisory Committee is an important step in the right direction. Work-integrated learning can be a powerful and effective strategy to help students to make an effective transition to the workforce. Data shows that will students offer employers higher retention rates. If a student worked with an employer as a student and is then hired as a graduate by that same company or a company in a similar sector, they tend to stay longer. And Peggy, your comment spoke to this. Clearly, they understand already what the sector looks like, what work there looks like. They've chosen, they've accepted, they like it, and they're going to stay. Will graduates become more productive earlier? The experience that they had before brings them closer to being ready for work when they arrive. These are important benefits for employers and for the student. In the current skills gap environment, the discussion that we're having around skills gap, you would likely find in speaking with employers that many of the skills that they are looking for and that they are finding lacking are the kind of skills that can be acquired through work-integrated learning, such as understanding the culture of the workplace, personal management, organizational and analytical skills. These are things that can be learned in a work integrated learning program. Employers who hire WIL students, particularly through strategic relationships with colleges and universities, have the opportunity to contribute not just to that student's learning, but also to the work that is being done by the institution. So what am I saying there? The employer, by virtue of having the student on site, can then have the work that they're doing reflected in the curriculum that is being offered at the college and university. Work integrated learning should be transformative. It should transform the student, it should transform the employer, it should transform the institution from which the student comes. When it's done the proper way, it's a tremendous benefit for all parties. Our employer members believe students should be paid for their productive work. We believe this because it's the right thing to do and it's the smart thing to do. Studies have shown that when students are paid, that they are more engaged in the work, and when they are paying, supervisors pay closer attention and spend more time working with the student to make sure that they are learning and achieving the goals that they've set together. These are all tremendously powerful assets and good reasons to support the creation of an advisory committee and to get behind work integrated learning as a strategy. So that's why we support the bill. We believe that all involved will gain from having an advisory committee in place, and we look forward to working with that committee when it happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Lisa.
Good morning. On behalf of EWO, I would like to take the opportunity to thank Peggy Sattler for introducing this long overdue bill and inviting us to participate in this press conference. Education at Work Ontario is the voice of cooperative education programs in the province and represents over 800 co-op programs at 37 post-secondary institutions in Ontario. Our association advocates and promotes the ethical and professional standards of cooperative education. We believe in earn as you learn. EWO abides by CAFCE, which is our National Association definition of co-op. CAFCE accreditation of co-op programs is recognized as a benchmark for excellence in cooperative education programming in Canada, and is one of the only bodies in the world that accredit work-integrated education programs. This cannot be said about other forms of work-integrated learning being offered at post-secondary institutions. Therefore, EWO supports in principle this bill to establish an advisory council on work-integrated learning. Work-integrated learning, or WIL, programs are expanding in colleges and universities. The timing is right to review and look at what's working and what's not. We believe that this council, with the appropriate membership, will move forward with much-needed recommendations in defining, facilitating, and promoting the various types of work-integrated learning opportunities for post-secondary students. By implementing the Advisory Council on Work-Integrated Learning and having, again, the appropriate stakeholders at the table, the following concerns of unpaid versus paid placements will be addressed. Co-op is the only form of WIL that has remuneration in their definition. We have seen cases where co-op students are working out there in industry, working alongside an internship student that is not getting paid. Is this right? No, it's not. Safety and coverage of students while on placement on the work term. No employment standards covered for students, and they're expected in a lot of cases to work longer hours. Facilitation of effective delivery of WIL programs. We believe that work-integrated learning programs need to have learning outcomes that need to be met in the industry and with their academics, and that there should be a reflection paper on their learning. Employer awareness. We need to educate employers on the different types of WILs that are available to them. Identification of resources and supports for student employers in the institution. Peggy mentioned a website, and we agree with that. EWO has its own website, which reaches out to employers and institutions. Access and equitability for all students involved in WIL. This includes students with disabilities, and this includes our high numbers of international students that are coming into our institutions and want to get Canadian work experience. These issues can be addressed and recommendations brought forward to the government in providing students easier transition to the workplace, allowing for meaningful, safe, and quality work experience in their field of study. EWO feels that the recommendations and actions of this council can provide the clarity needed to support students in whatever WIL program they choose, and would also benefit their academics, their career paths, and future job prospects, which in turn supports the post-secondary institutions, employers, of course the economy, and the province of Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Sean, the student perspective.
Absolutely. Thanks again to MPP Sattler for the introduction of this bill and for having us here today. We're tremendously supportive of the spirit and the content of this bill. USA, the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, is a student advocacy and research group that represents 140,000 students across 7 campuses in the province of Ontario. Work-integrated learning is tremendously important to students all across the province and our students. There's tremendous benefits for students who participate in work-integrated learning. We also think a provincial approach to work-integrated learning is an important strategy in addressing youth employment, successful transitions from post-secondary education into the workplace, and can help mitigate what is perceived by some to be a crisis in youth job readiness. Students who participate in work-integrated learning, paid work-integrated learning, stand to make more than their peers upon graduation, on average $2 to $3 more an hour in their first job. They also have better transitions to the workplace, often attaining employment and employment that's related to their field of study sooner. They tend to graduate with less debt. They tend to have more financial resources available to them, and they tend to speak to having better learning outcomes as a result of blending work and learning. Speaking to students who've participated in work-integrated learning, we hear all the time that they have more confidence in finding any career, even one not related to ones that they did their work-integrated learning in, due to development of workplace skills, interview skills, resume building skills, and having worked in a workplace they're familiar. We find they're also better at articulating the learning outcomes of their education and translating that to an employer. But probably most importantly, they report to a much, much better educational experience having participated in work-integrated learning. Students who have participated in work-integrated learning have an extra dimension added to their in-classroom experience when they take the workplace back there. They can see how those skills apply, they can quantify those skills, and they can just get more engaged in their classroom experience, seeing how it's going to translate to, ideally, their dream career. Speaking more to the bill, within this bill, we're optimistic that a web resource, centralized web resource with the supports available to employers will hopefully encourage employers to take on more work-integrated learning students by letting them know about the resources available and supporting them in doing so, such as cooperative and education tax credits, but also in spelling out some of the advantages that Paul highlighted in taking on a work-integrated learning student and the cross-benefit that can exist between employer and employee in that situation. We're also optimistic that the website and associated resources will really kind of help hammer home how to create a good work-integrated learning experience. A lot of employers are hesitant to take on a WIL student simply because they're not sure what do we have to do with them to come up with the most successful learning experience for them. What are the expected outcomes and how can we provide those? And we're hoping that more clear, concise, and centralized resources will contribute to that. We're also very excited at the prospect of the Advisory Council and its ability to explore some more specific strategies around work-integrated learning, particularly providing work-integrated learning opportunities for students who are typically underrepresented in these types of experiences and who can really stand to benefit most from the learning and earnings outcomes that come along with this. We're also excited about the possibility of expanding strategies around underrepresented disciplines within work-integrated learning. When you often think about work-integrated learning, people tend to think of accounting or of computer science or engineering, where there's a real appetite among arts and science, humanities, and social sciences for these types of experiences and a real interest in the outcomes that come from them. We're also interested in exploring the possibility of exploring more resources for employers, especially small to medium enterprises who might wish to take on the types of students I described above, but who feel at a loss in how they can do so and how they can find resources to do so. Having a provincial conversation about those things is going to be tremendously important in encouraging employer expansion, not just among the traditional work-integrated learning, but new avenues as well. We're also excited about what this bill means for the expansion of the understanding of work-integrated learning. A provincial approach to quantifying what can be a strong work-linked educational experience expands again beyond the traditional understanding of co-op and looks at some of the things that Peggy mentioned: community service learning, placements, field work. That sort of thing has traditionally been overlooked when it comes to resources and support and quantifying outcomes. And we're excited about what the Advisory Council can do in support of expanding that mission as well. So in summation, USA is excited to see this bill back. We're excited about the possibilities of it, and we're tremendously supportive of the spirit and direction of a provincial approach to work-integrated learning.
Thank you all for coming here today. I think we've heard clearly that there is definitely strong student interest across different faculties and fields of study at both the college and the university level for greater access to these programs. We know that institutions often struggle to find enough placements for their students who want to participate in these programs. We also know that employers, would like to provide more of these kinds of opportunities, but don't know how to go about creating a placement, don't have a relationship with a post-secondary institution to help them bring a student into their workplace. So I think that this advisory council is needed. I think that the Liberal government should move forward with this bill to create this advisory council to bring employers, post-secondary institutions, students, economic development officials, faculty around the table so that we can have this kind of discussion about how to create a meaningful framework to move this forward in the province of Ontario. And I'd like to thank you all very much again today for joining us here, and I hope that this will really move forward on this issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.